let's start the meeting. Okay. Oh.
Uh-oh.
Wrong screen. Just 1 minute. Okay. Did you see the screen? Did everybody
Yeah.
see? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's officially start. Okay. So here is Asian philosophies. We have been covered for. Pin, you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. There's one important mistranslation in the article. It's the very last stratagem. It translates it as when all else fails, escape, something like when all else fails, escape is the best. It's actually it's actually not that. It's
Okay. We will
that
cover
escape is the best, period. Not when all else fails. So I think that's very, very important. It's a fundamental.
Okay, make sure you talk about this. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, I'm not going to cover every single 36 strategy, and that's not the purpose. Okay, but any, I know here has people already know, okay, other than pins. So please bring your disagreement or your understand to share. And then I also hope the people first time read 36 stratagem give us your view about this. So we will see the same word, the same teaching, the people inside the culture and the people outside the culture will look at totally different. That's why I post today's reading. I think that's very interesting, you know, by the cultural perspective. So let's start, and we have one. We've been running for many weeks, okay, continuously. So today we talk about 36 strategies and other work. Basic focus on the business side, and it's about a little bit more than a month ago we talked about this, and a little bit about the next week. Next week I just post the paper, a short paper about 5 pages, and which is about the Neo-Taoism and the Neo-Confucianism. And you may find it's a little bit difficult to read if you are not familiar with the Taoism and the Confucianism. But I think that's the purpose. You just go through that and mark the part you are not sure, not understand, and during the meetup, we can discuss it. The purpose, I think the purpose of the paper is not that difficult. Basically, it's talking about the metaphysics for both Taoism and Confucianism. But they have some terms may be difficult, maybe foreign for some of you, but don't worry, just go through, or you want to bring up, do your own research, that'll be fine. And then I expect to use this paper as a guideline to introduce Neo-Confucianism and Neo-Taoism for the group. And later on, I think October 23rd, I think Pin is going to talk about Mencius reading, one of the very famous reading, talking about Liang Huiwang, I think it's the King Liang, okay, the first chapter, and it's a dialect, so it's much more fun than reading Confucius analog. It's only like one sentence answer, but Mencius is more fun. He has kind of not like Plato's dialogue, but at least and more conversation. His conversation with the kid. And then October 30th, Rubana, I don't know if she's here. She's working on one or two sections about the Islamic philosophy and some of the Sufism and the Rumi. She's working on that. I hope everything work out. We try to invite 2 professional, 2 doctors have a presentation to our group. And then we move to November, and we are going to take Thanksgiving week off. And on December 4th, Phil, our original founder of the from the philosophers and the gamblers, and he just agreed. Okay, going to have a paper reading on the December 4th. And the December 11th, please mark that day. I plan to host a year-end meetup and without specific subject. So everybody welcome to join to review what we have done, or give us a suggestion, ask a question, and because I'm going to restart next year, and then that's the time I want to take the, everybody's suggestion, and so we can continue. So anything about today, the schedule, everything? Otherwise, we are going to move on. Okay.
So is it next week? Is it next week that Pin's doing the Leung speech?
No, 2 weeks. Okay, next week.
2 week.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 week. Yeah.
Yeah. And so next week you
Okay.
see 2 weeks. Okay, and 2 weeks later you see Pin. See which one you want to see, or you want to see both. Okay. So next week is Taoism and Confucianism. Okay. So. Okay. I hope everybody reads the paper. All right. I think this paper, before we go to step by step on 36 stratagems, the purpose is I'm not going to cover every single one because I don't see that's our purpose of our meetup. I think we are more on the philosophical side. And the reason I choose this one is the author, Davia, the writing at the first few paragraphs a little bit shocked me and bring me to think, okay, why she has this kind of comment. And then I like spend some time to discuss her comment, and then before we move on to the 36 stratagems. I'm going to read from her paper. Okay, that's she said. I highlighted the word with red. Okay, 36 stratagems permeates the culture. Children are taught them early, and they are referred to as nursery rhyme and the soap opera, songs, and the storytelling. I'm not sure nursery rhyme, but very sure about the soap opera, storytelling, and some have said that they are part of Chinese collective unconsciousness. But that is indeed quite troubling, given their contents. Okay, so that's the author's comment. I do agree it's a collective unconsciousness, and I'm surprised the author, okay, Davia, gives the comment about troubling, okay, the contents, and that's true. We don't learn from the textbook. Usually we learn. Okay, we learn from soap opera. If you watch Chinese soap opera, Chinese newspaper, story, ancient, even today, there's a lot of this name or example will show up. Before I go to Pin, let me finish the reading. And adjunct to Sun Tzu's The Art of War, the 36 stratagems are all about misdirection, deceit, dominance. Literally, they are 180 degrees opposite to the trustworthy behavior I have always preached. In fact, upon first reading them, they made my skin crawl, okay? But then I realized that this comparing ancient leadership advice is exactly the kind of information we need to be aware of, think about, and plan for, whether we embrace it or not, because our adversaries surely are doing so. Okay. So I do agree on the last part, but I'm surprised. I'm not saying I disagree. Okay, talk about make her skin crawl. Okay. I think that's a very interesting comment. Okay, so I'm not saying I disagree or I agree, but I think that's the part that is worth to discuss. Okay, let me finish this part. Their goals are to confuse the enemy in order to vanquish them. Not a win-win strategy is to be found among them. Rather, these are strategies to the winner to take all at any cost. Some of the strategies are familiar from their application in sports and the modern military strategy. while others are relatively unknown in the West. But in the East, they are applied to business and politics as well as to war. Okay. So that's her comment, okay, about this one. I know Pin want to say something. Okay, okay, Pin, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for opening with us. I'm glad we have a chance to discuss these nuances. I think it's a great example of how difficult it is to do intercultural understanding, because there's always some truth, but there's sometimes knowing a little bit is almost worse than knowing nothing. So a few thoughts to share. Yeah, the phrases that caught your attention also caught my attention. One is, number one, is not taught to children, 36 stratagems. Okay, what's taught to children is like Sanzijin and this stuff that's totally different. It is true that it permeates in our culture in the sense that in one of my presentations before, I talked about in the Chinese language, there are these 4-character idioms that are basically used as words. They're set, and pretty much except for the very last few, every single one of these 36 stratagems is a 4-character idiom. So basically, it's used in our language, everyday language. It's infused into that, and that is true. But another thing to say is that it's normally used in a humorous way. This is not something to be studied seriously. Normally, we use these like someone try to pull wool over your eyes, or someone try to deceive you, and let's say a friend, and then you caught what he's doing, and you say, oh, you thought you could pull this stratagem on me, didn't you? But I caught you. It's most of the time it's used as humor, these stratagems, and I really it's rather rare. It's looked at in some kind of a very serious way, like, oh, this is, I have this something I need to accomplish, and then how do I. It's more used like adjectives and words in language to describe something. And maybe you pulled out something that you're quite proud of afterwards. When you describe it to someone, you would use one of these terms from the stratagems. That's so anyway, worry not. I don't think anyone's skin needs to crawl. It's
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pim. I share. I have the same way of your thinking, but I kind of more interested in why people in the two sides think about things differently, and then that also reveal they probably have much more misunderstanding, okay, between Chinese culture and the Western culture. And another more serious problem is probably have much more misunderstanding between any two cultures. For example, Western and Islamic, okay, or any other two culture. So that's the key, I think, we need to study, and probably that's the purpose, the ultimate goal in our group. Douglas, thank you for patience.
Okay, yeah, this is Douglas. I'm Dr. Douglas Pilzer. I taught philosophy over 30 years in the college. Okay, and I'm more into the Greek philosophy, okay, because I'm more in classical Greek. I've written a lot of books and stuff on that. But here's the thing: we have to look at it from the context of the time, okay, and what time it was. And what was going on at the period of time, if we're looking at what you're talking about. So you have to look at it from time, context of what was going on at the time, and understand that a lot of what was brought up because situations that were going on in the area.
Yeah, thank you, Douglas. Anybody have any comment on this one? Joe, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out, in terms of Western culture, we have these things called the Ten Commandments, which apply to, I believe, the majority of the people in this country. And that doesn't mean we follow them. People are aware of them. They're in the conscious, in our unconscious minds, but we pay no attention to those basically on a daily basis. I mean, things like that, shout not kill, I understand, but we lie, we covet, So these are just, I would see the 36 stratagems as being somewhat similar to the 10 Commandments. Many people know them, but they're not actually followed, and there's nothing there to make your skin crawl.
All right, thank you, Joe. But I think I agree with you. Okay, so but even we don't follow the 10 Commandments, but we have to we cannot deny the 10 Commandments have some impact to the people who grow up in this culture. Same as like Pin said, the 36 stratagem, we look at it as a joke, as a kitty or something. But since you hear day and day, not day and day, if you watch soap opera, you probably see a lot. And you read the newspaper, Chinese newspaper, they probably use this one as a title to describe what George Bush did, describe what the president did, this what's going on. This one. So that probably have more unknown influence on that. So that's probably more important to realize. And second thing is, how does other culture, when they read with 5 sentence, 1 paragraph description, what do they learn? Just like Douglas said, it's the context of, or really get the essence on that. That's a different story. I think we have Thai. I think we have a lot to cover, and then the detail of this strategy, that's safe for the later part. Okay, so we have the Thai, please.
Yeah, so I guess in my former life, I was an attorney as well as a professor of humanities and rhetoric. So I guess 2 things. If you look at my picture, I play poker. And so in my ordinary life, I certainly try to practice, morality, and whether we want to talk about Kant or Bentham is up for debate. But the reason I enjoy poker so much is actually I can employ these exact strategies at the poker table. Like I've been everything from a fast food worker to a vet to, I say all sorts of things at the poker table, and I do all sorts of things at the poker table that I wouldn't ordinarily do in my entire life. So I look forward to learning about these strategies, and I can tell you that every poker player employs every single one of these strategies, and they do so gracefully. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you, Thai. Yeah, same thing as like, you don't follow the Bible teaching, when you play chess, right? Be honest, love your neighbor, love your adversary, okay, forgiving everybody. So, so I think everything has its own domain. And that's just like Thai said, you play poker, but you don't teach your kids, use the same way in the school. I think we're Alex, Pin, and James. Alex, please.
Yes, I want to actually refer to Dr. Pilzer, his comment before that the context of time was important, because at that time, Confucius was, of course, a huge deal, right? So you have one side, Confucius being, following your listen to your rulers and everything, and very moral, respectful. And then you have the other hand, you have these 36 strategies for psychological affairs. So I just want to say that these 36 strategies have nothing to do with like being nice to people or anything. These are technical strategies. It's not really about it's about winning a war, because during that time, there's no one there to protect you, right? You either win or you lose, and then if you lose, you get killed. So these psychological stratagems is justified because it's all about survival at that time, and it's actually so important that people during that time, the general, the soldiers, even the emperor himself or the king, they all have to study these things because these are guidelines. Like what Ta said, he used a lot of these in his game of poker, but during the time back then, it was life and death. And these are guidelines. Like, when I read this, I feel like, oh yeah, I've done this before in my life. I've actually employed some of the strategies, right, at work or with other people, right? So this is actually almost like sum up, the guidelines as to in these situations, what you can do to win. And so it's very different from Confucius, but at the same time, also very important during that time. So when you said that when she read it, it makes her skin crawl. That's because I think she really doesn't understand that this is not really about harming other people or like doing bad things. This is about survival.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I think that also remind us one thing is when we read other cultures' teaching, right? Are we in the same way, right? We read other cultures' teaching. When we read it and with one paragraph explanation, we will say, "Oh, how come they are doing this?" Right? So it's probably they have something we don't know. I think that's the purpose I want to bring out this one. Yeah. Pin, please.
Quick comment about history. Yeah, a lot of these stratagems are there's a background historical story behind it, like put the state away, besiege the state away to save the state of Zhao. So I think that's part of the popularity too, is that each one encapsulates a little historical story. Another thing, actually, Jason, I thought you had a great point about mutual understanding. I apologize, I sounded kind of cavalier, dismissive about people who felt they're disturbed or fearful upon reading these stratagems. Actually, if anyone among us kind of had that kind of reaction, I would like to hear from them to. I think this should be a safe space. So we're trying to understand each other, not judge each other. So I think people who had that kind of reaction should feel fully justified, and please feel free to speak up to talk about your reaction and what was the thoughts you might want to share. So I think it's very understandable.
Yeah,
we would love to, mutually understand that. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's very important, and that's exactly the purpose we are doing this. Because the first reaction I'd like to know firsthand, the outsider read this one, how does you react? Second is kind of reflect to myself, right? When I read other culture, do I make the same mistake, so-called mistake or misunderstanding of other culture? I think that's more important than which side is right. Yes, okay. James, please.
I just wanted to say to thank Ty for his comments. I think they opened up a very rich discussion. And I think this reminds me of Heidegger's dictum that Dasein is in the truth and Dasein is equally in the untruth, regardless of someone's propinquities to always tell the truth or to deceive. It's a fact that human relations are equally involved in the truth and the untruth, and all these. Someone also talked about war as being a life and death matter, and what it is the most extreme game. All these things are games: game of war, game of diplomacy, the game of poker and chess and so forth. All of them are involved. All games have elements of power and deception.
Thank you, James. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I think we already Okay, I think the important is how to read this one, right? I think that there's the same way. I think it's 36 strategy is not alone. Okay, okay, Art of War, we read it. The most famous probably is Machiavelli's, right? The Prince, right? If you read as a moral teacher, then you will say like his chapter, which chapter? Let's say so-called the most hated chapter. Okay, 24 or something. Okay, that's the most hated. Talk about the prince should not be honest, something blah blah blah. Okay, and then I also find out Machiavelli also have a book called Art of War. Okay, it's a Socratic dialogue talking about the military science. I didn't read the book, but it's interesting. Okay, he also talk about Art of War, and in the Prince, right? And there's a chapter called Art of War, and it's very similar to what very similar to the first 5 chapters of Sun Tzu's Art of War, talk about how important the war, and you have to learn the war. It's the life and death, and you have to prepare for in the peacetime. The best way is not use it, but in case you have to use it, you have to basically the same strategy. Okay, that Machiavelli is writing. Okay, so I think when we read the 36 strategy, we kind of have to think about, we probably read the same way as you read Machiavelli. Or you will say Machiavelli is totally nonsense, we should not read it. Then you probably don't have to learn Art of War, or don't have to read 36 strategy, because I think that's the same thing. And another thing, not that famous, but it's probably is a lot. I know they have a meetup group talking about this. Miyamoto Musashi's The Book of Fine Rings. That's in the Japanese culture, and he during the so-called the Sengoku period. Okay, he's the samurai, the most famous samurai, Miyamoto Musashi. Okay, his most famous samurai, and then as a samurai, your job is a duel. And he died at age of 62 when he was sick. So that means during his duel, he always won, right? So that's why he can die at the 62 years old when he was in the deathbed. So, and he wrote a book called The Book of Five Rings, and then the 5 chapters. That basically is five rings: earth, water, fire, wind, and the void. Okay, you can see got a heavy influence by the Buddhism thinking. And basically he's talking about how to duel. But a lot of today's in the business school or something, they read this one the same way as read the Sun Tzu's Art of War or 36 Stratagems, use this one for the business strategy. Okay, so I think that's another book that people read in the same way. And if you look at all this one, Sun Tzu, okay, Miyamoto Musashi, and Machiavelli, they all grow up in pure basics, the same kind of situation in the warring state situation. Sun Tzu is in the warring state, or spring and autumn before the warring state. Machiavelli is to the during the time Italian Renaissance, and they have at least 5 principalities, right? Many principalities. He is advised to the Dimamichi family. Okay, so basically the same thing. Okay, and same as Miyamoto Musashi. Okay, he is grown up in the Japanese so-called Sengoku period, which means warring state in Japan. Okay, so also so they kind of grow up this kind of strategy, and this kind of strategy being used not only for the duel during the war, and also used for the business, and then in today's even used for the people's relationship. I'm not saying improve the people, but So let's have some comment, and we have a Pin and the Douglas. Pin, please.
A quick one to follow up on Alex's point about survival. I want to echo that, and that's why the most popular and most often quoted one is probably the last one, which says, walking away is the best strategy. So we're talking about the survival situation where if first ask yourself if you can just run away, if you can't, run first.
Thank you. Douglas, please.
going from so say that you know.
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Douglas,
Rich,
we cannot
can
hear
you
you.
hear me?
Your
Let me
connection.
get it. Can you hear me better now?
Can
Better?
you try again? Yeah.
Okay. So I would say I was an Iron Champion poker player. I was on the TV, okay? And what he had to say about poker is right. You have to use all these strategies to win a game of poker, okay? And how many times we did that. But the big thing that you would want to hear is the basic, remember all the wars. We're going to talk about the different wars that went on. There were quite a few wars going on at the time, okay? And everybody was fighting everybody, if you remember correctly. So there was no peace. It was all fighting. So when he wrote the book, he wrote it because of the wars that were going on.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
that's what I would let you know.
All right, thank you.
And
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you.
We
Thank
can
you.
talk about that.
Douglas, I have to mute you because you have a lot of background noise. Okay. Okay, anything about this one? Okay, then let's move on. Okay, I just copy from the I think it's from Wikipedia. I think the description is quite, at least I agree. So, so that's right. So I see Ben, you have the hands up.
Yeah, one thing that I just wanted to add that I found to be interesting about the article is it said that each of the stratagems is a winners take all position. But then I was thinking about it, there's no such thing as winner takes all, especially in terms of war. Like everyone loses something, even if you are victorious, right? And then it's interesting that it's published in a Forbes article and not like a historical website or something like that, or a museum database. And because at the end of the day, like if we're real about it, business is not analogous to war. You lose your life in war. And in business, you just lose resources. And so the same principles may apply in some ways, but we all know that businesses, at the end of the day, when we're looking at them long-term, flourish on trust and providing value. But anyways.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Pin, please.
Yeah, thanks. I thought that was an excellent point by Ben. Yeah, I would say the winner take all is the author of the essay's own interpretation. It's not how it's normally perceived in the Chinese mind. And frankly, winner take all is not much of a concept in Chinese culture. Because there's, the yin and yang and things like that is so embedded in our consciousness. There's always different opposing forces that are always present and need to be harmonized. So I'm just agreeing with Ben. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I think I think if you strictly look at the 36 strategy in the foreigner's eye, okay, I think all of them are winner take all, except the last one. Okay. We have Kevin and SK. Kevin, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Let's
Okay.
talk about this paper. Okay, before we go to the detail on the 36 strategy. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Kevin, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
About you.
You switch my topic. Yeah. For me, let's general talk. I would say it's our thinking method is so different. Let's see. For Western perspective, we normally like binary perspective. It's either right, yes or no. That's easy. It sounds easy. Actually, it's not like that. If even you see the yes, opposite could be the true, could be the exception. It could be false, feelable, and for each side, like just now Pin said, it's not. It's a winner take all. It's no they in the context. You cannot find this. This best strategy is 36, right? Don't fight. Go. If you can move away, the situation, move away from the conflict, that's the best. Even let's see, those let's say 36 strategy, you still can use it in certain situation. Let's see, it's not, for me, before a situation, a conflict, if you have what's the intention? The intention to protect yourself or cause harm to others. If cause to harm others, absolutely, that's bad. That's people like seagull skin curl. I can make sense. If let's say protect yourself, this makes sense, right? That's when you got a situation. Let's see, in certain situation, you definitely use those strategy. For example, the one maybe make her is uncomfortable. It's let's see, you going to use others to kill your enemy. That's powerful, I would say. It's maybe the word is a hustle, but it's help. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kevin. SK, please.
Yeah, just very quickly. I think war is in every aspect of life. It literally starts from us within. We have conflicts within. You can apply this for ourselves. We can apply between relationship, husband, wife, brother, sister, friends. You can go to the business and then you go to the war, right? So I think it applies everywhere, in my opinion. That's it.
Thank you, SK. Yeah. Pin and the Madeline. Pin, please.
Yeah, I just want to elaborate a little bit more on this winner take all thing in Chinese culture. In Chinese culture, if you tell someone that, oh, you're the winner and you took it all, it will make that person really scared. It's almost like a curse. Because in Chinese culture, we're taught, very ingrained with avoiding extremes. And when you take all, it's very extreme. And also from I Ching and all kinds of ancient philosophy books, it's always when you have all, that's the greatest danger, and you're pretty much done. You're going to be, that's like you're on the edge of being destroyed somehow. So winner take all, somehow I think it's an important maybe distinction between cultures. It may sound very good to some people, to people in the West, but I would say in the Chinese culture, winner take all is seen as a very bad thing that you really need to avoid.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But that's okay. Let's go to Madeline, please. Madeline.
Okay, there we go. Let's see, two things. One was I had decided to complain to the a legal department in my city about a problem with my apartment because I wasn't getting anywhere with my attempts, and I felt guilty because I was sicking the law on them, and at the same time I thought, you know what, city's much more powerful than I am. There are these laws for a reason. And then I thought, oh, this is kill with a borrowed knife, and which is to get someone else to do the work for me because it wasn't working. It's lead paint remediation, and it felt very vile to think to myself, oh, this is kill with a borrowed knife. But now that I know it's used more humorously, it actually makes more sense. So thank you for that. Also, as long as we're on the slide, the one we're on right now, I did look up the woman who wrote the article. Her background is really in working for big multinational corporations doing marketing.
Mhm.
And she also does basically media and reputation management and crisis management.
Okay.
So that's, you know, she's got Ivy League degrees and everything, but this is her, her thing is the corporate world, crisis management, and managing the reputations of corporations.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the different person read it will have a different reaction. That's for sure, you know. But that's why we are discussing this. While this discussion, I kind of realize, you know, how that's I try to summarize how the two sides will look at the 36 stratagems a little bit different. I think it depends on how we learn it. Okay. First, the 36 stratagems is not like a textbook, right? You have, some people may imagine, today you probably can buy in Chinese or English, so-called 36 stratagems, and you have the 36 chapter. Each chapter have the expression, strategy, reasoning, and application, this kind of book. But that's not, at least not for me and the friend I know, the way that we learn, right? The way we learn is, no, school is not teaching this. School teaching the Confucius talk, Mencius, not teaching about this. But when you read, for example, the Romans of Three Kingdoms, okay, the famous strategist Zhuge Liang, okay, he will use that strategy, and we will know, oh, this one named this one named this. We watch soap opera, okay, especially the ancient soap opera. We will see the story. We know that's this, that's this. And since the name, just like Pin said, that's 4 words idiom, it kind of sounds like exactly, you know, you don't need a reason. It just sounds right, okay? And they stick in your brain. And today you open the newspaper, they talk about Joe Biden. They use the word to describe how Joe Biden do this, okay? So you just review this one again and again. So after a while, you learn this 36 strategy. You probably cannot name all at once, but at least you are very familiar with at least 30s. And each one is not a textbook teaching. Each one is a story and many stories. So doesn't matter how evil of this story, okay, or how good of this one, or winner take or whatever, it's not just a story or text. It's a rich of story. So for example, like Madeline said, borrow knife to kill someone. Okay, so I probably quickly can bring up a few stories. And usually the person who borrowed the story is the bad guy. Okay, so it's nothing affect the moral. Sometimes you talk about for like something like let's say replace bin with rotten timber. Okay, so this one we will have another story. Okay, and the person do it is to save his own country. Okay, so many stories. So it's kind of like a balance. Okay, so each strategy to the person in the culture, we know it has its own boundary. Okay, and we have many stories. Unlike the person from outside, he will read 36 pages or 36 sentences or 36 books. That's a very different situation, because when you read it, you don't have the boundary. You just read it and apply, just like the author. Okay, she is in the cutting throats, okay, business competition, okay, doing the corporate competition. So she will think about it in a different way. So I think that's the key difference between the two cultures, how we learn this and how the other learn it. And the lesson I learned for myself is be careful when I pick up a Bhagavad Gita to read. I'm reading outside, okay? And what Shriram or SK read it, okay? They are reading from inside. They get a totally different view. Okay, so I think that's the lesson probably is more important than who is right. You know, Alex, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, because actually, even though I know Mandarin, but I've never read this 36 stratagem in my life until now. So as a
let me interrupt you, but you know some, right? Before you read this.
Yes. So just like Pin said, it's part of our growing up. But the context of time again is very important, because back then they were really employing this to save themselves in the in war. But of course, you know, the wartime is not as much as before, but people deploy these strategies in real life as well. So the interesting thing for me is, while you have Confucius on one hand, but secretly, I think, you know, everybody knows that, you know, knowing Confucius is not going to save you. It's not going to be able to explain what to do in all situations. Just because you respect your parents doesn't mean that you know, you're not going to get yourself in trouble, or even if you, a lot of times, you know, in ancient stories, you follow your rulers, but there's always someone else try to sabotage you and all that. So, you know, how are you going to deploy these strategies in real life? You know, so these strategies applies to war, to life, and you know, in many situations. And I actually find them, you know, as I grow up, you know, of course, you know, just like what Pin said, you know, it's everyday life. You know, you can make fun of, joke about a situation like, oh yeah, you're trying to, you know, kill with a bar knife, you know, and you know, or as high as, you know, as you know, the political situations that you see right now. But I just wanted to make this point that Confucius is not enough to explain about life. And people back then, they understand that. So they can, one hand, read Confucius, and then the next minute, they're going to read 36 Stratagems, because they know that this is actually much more practical in real life situations. So, yeah, but actually, I have a question for Jason. Jason, is this supposed to be a book, or is this coming from the Art of War, or is this just like it's written by Sun Tzu, right?
No, okay. So that's exactly this slide I'm going to talk about. Okay, I think Pin probably can experiment better. So Pin, you want to answer this question? And
Pin is frankly, I didn't even
until more historical correct than me. So
no, I wouldn't say that, but I happened to look into it last night, because until last night, I had never seen a book called the 36 Stratagems. You know, like a real one, not like some business book or, you know, some essay about it. None of us, I don't think, learned it from reading any kind of a book. So I decided to do a little research, and according to Wikipedia, the Chinese version, that there was no such, the earliest published book on 36 Stratagems was until 1941. And so, and it wasn't until 2003 that through archaeology, they did dig up a book that was written before Tang Dynasty that really was a dedicated book on 36 stratagems. That proved that there was an ancient book. But as far as, you know, for regular people, there wasn't a book till 1941. And even after that, very few people, I think, you even know that there's existence of a book. It's in our language. We just learn it basically through everyday living. So, and I certainly don't think Sun Tzu or Zhuge Liang wrote this book. As Jason said many times before, this is kind of, you know, I thought Jason described it really correctly. It's vulgar culture, you know, it's not, and none of these great philosophers, I don't think, would bother to write a book like this, frankly.
Yeah, I think that's the later day people collect all this one. You can see the number 36 and the layout to 6 category. You know, it's like totally man-made. Okay. So
yeah, I think right from the beginning it was made more for fun. You know, more for fun. It's even in the ancient times. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Kevin have something to say. Kevin, please. Or just before Kevin, let me precisely answer Alex's question. It's not written by Sun Tzu. Okay, so It's related to Sun Tzu, but not written by Sun Tzu. Okay. Kevin.
Great.
Yeah, to summary, I would see, if we read those from, let's see, Tao and Confucius even here, it's all related, culture, perspective, yin and yang. And for this one, those 36, more than that, it's idiom. We use daily, almost. If we didn't, let's see, learn this a book or a strategy, when you speak that idiom, we right away grab what's the meaning, what's it used for. Then, by the way, I'm going to give you the Madeline is how smart you are. You got wisdom, how to use that. Let's follow now how let's see you follow rules and order like Confucius, right? That's a follow rules order. You cannot solve the problem. So you have to use other, let's see, this one of 36 strategy to solve the issue. So it's not just from context, it's hustle words, that's the meaning, that's like logos. Words is not a dough. You have to use it abstract, high level wisdom, do something. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Pin, please.
Yeah, I thought Alex brought up a great point about Confucius, that the dichotomy of Confucius and something like this. Confucius, I think we're also, most Chinese are well aware that, Confucius is for greatness. And if you look at Confucius' objectives he set out for himself for his lifetime, he failed, right? Completely. He wanted to convince a king to really practice his philosophy and achieve great society. But he traveled all these different states in China and couldn't convince any king to adopt to truly adopt. So you looked at his lifetime objectives, he completely failed. And I think we all know that. So that's Confucius is something you aspire to, as you were saying, Alex, that if you want to be great and be remembered as someone who was willing to sacrifice for mankind, hundreds or thousands of years later, that's Confucius. And but if you're most people are more short-sighted and just look at how can I deal with this situation right now. There's you look to other things. That's my
yeah, thank
interpretation.
You. Yeah, that's the view. That if you look at Confucius' resume, it's terrible. You're looking for a job, and until 53 years old, he got a job. Okay, as a chief policeman, something like this. And then after 3 years, he got fired, and then he has become jobless and lived to 72 years old and died. So that's his lifetime. So that's a great person. That's another way to look at it. Okay, Kevin, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I'm going to comment very quick. It's for those 36. Each one either have one story or you can summarize it from the story. Yeah. Basically, have long history, have something to do. It's not just from let's imagination or from mathematics come up. They have a story behind. The second point is why let's Confucius doesn't work for the rulers, so why this one could be help them. Let's say I give you one example. The Song dynasty so powerful, so civilized. However, how are they, eventually going down by the Mongolian, right? They use the horse, knife. They kill military power. So that's when if you follow the Confucius, it doesn't work. So that's a sadly. If we look at the historical world history, even now, you got a military power, possible people going to consider your power. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. Okay. Let me quickly. I think we already covered this one. The 36 stratagems have variably been attributed to Sun Tzu from the spring and autumn period of China, or Zhuge Liang of the Three Kingdoms period. Remember 2 weeks ago, Pin talked about the Ode of Red Cliff. The story, the background story is the Zhuge Liang, the smartest strategist. Okay, so his story, okay, a lot is, or we should say, the 36 stratagems has been used by him, or he invented this 36 stratagems, okay, in the book, okay. But neither are regarded as the true author by historians. As a prevailing view is that the 36 stratagem may have originated in both written and oral history, with different versions that were compiled by different authors through Chinese history. Some stratagems referring occurrence in the time of Sun Bin, approximately 150 years after Sun Zi's death. Sun Bin is another military general strategist. Okay, we can cover the story later, but you know, he has no relation with Sun Zi, but that's another famous story about Sun Bin. So let's move on to I think that we already covered this one. Basics, the art of war. There are 13 chapters. Basics we can put in the 3 category. Okay, the first part, I think we kind of read some of them. It's about the military philosophy, political stage. Okay, and the second part from 5 to 8, basically we talk about the military science, planning stage. And the last 5 chapters more on the strategy and the practical, even go to like how to use spy, how to take advantage of ground, you know, all kind of detail. So let's move on. So that's why I said it is definitely the later day people compile together, because 6 is a good number. Okay, in Chinese, 6 is a good number. Okay, so you put a 6 category, and each one have 6. Basics from the winning strategy, enemy daring, attacking, chaos, approximates strategy, defeat. When you defeat, that's a different one. So we have another hour. We probably can spend like 10 minutes on each category, and we probably don't want to go to many detail, but it's welcome to bring what you read. We don't, not necessarily you are expert, but I was more interested, just like Madeline said, you know, she bring the example, she borrowed a knife to kill somebody, something like this. Sorry about. So basics is like, you know, so this kind of daily application, and how do you think, or when you read the article, if you have any thought, okay, or any question, that's the time we can talk about. So the first part is winning strategy. Okay, so let's go over, and anybody have any question want to ask or anything want to comment, please raise your hand. Madam, please.
Sorry, that was an accidental hand raise.
Oh, okay, so, okay. And anybody want to talk about some of this? Okay, Pim, please.
Yeah, I'll talk about one.
The first one?
Since no one else volunteered. I like one of my favorite one is number 2, because it has a that's history behind it, and it's so maybe I'll just very quickly tell the history, because it also has to do with Sun Bin, the general that you just referred to. So Sun Bin was a general with the state of Qi, and the state of Wei attacked the state of Zhao, who was friendly with Qi. So, and Zhao was under siege by Wei, in great danger. So Zhao sent an emissary to Qi to say, please help us. You know, we're about to be destroyed. So the king of Qi. So Sun Bin came up with a very clever strategy. He said, let's, instead of the direct route, sending troops to relieve Zhao directly. Right now, you look at the situation, basically Wei, the attacker, they have a lot of troops out there deployed to put Zhao under siege. So their own capital is vulnerable. So why don't we can threaten them with just a small number of troops and with relative ease to relieve the siege of Zhao by just attacking, a quick attack on the capital of Wei, the attacker. So that's what happened. They sent a small crack troop to threaten the capital of Wei. And when Wei learned of that, of course, they immediately had to relieve the siege around Zhao and hurry back to save their own capital. And then I think Qi, before Wei got back, Qi probably could have just retreated. So achieve their military objectives without even sacrificing a lot of lives or resources.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. You have any real life application on this?
Well, yeah, a lot of times instead of the direct attack, think about the box a little bit. If there is a clever, smarter way to do things. That's
Yeah, thank you. Tai, please.
Sure. I was just going to give an example with regard to number 5, loot a burning house with regard to poker. There's an adage in poker that, after 5 minutes at a poker table, if you don't know who the sucker is, you're the sucker. And so typically when you're looting a burning house or the sucker at a table, you want to get them on one-on-one action. The issue with getting a sucker at a table is you don't want to be caught, or you don't want your own house to burn. And that is to say, typically a sucker is going to call you down if they have top pair. Top pair is not necessarily a very good hand in poker, but because they don't understand poker thoroughly, they're going to call you. So you can certainly attack a sucker or a burning house, but by the same token, you cannot ever bluff a burning house. And so if you try to bluff the sucker at the table, your hand's going to be revealed because they're a calling station and they're just going to call you down. And so I just wanted to give that as an example.
Yeah, that's a good example. And I also have another example on this one. Like, a lot of time in the business, you file the business lawsuit, and the owner, has a problem of the fighting the divorce in the family. That's probably the good time to file a lawsuit because he's busy in his family issue. So that's the time to file the for example, copyright infringement. So that I can fully understand the author's idea of the cutting throat, winner take all, cold blood, this kind of strategy. So I'm not saying I'm doing this, but I'm saying that's the way to do it. Ben, please.
I was going to say, it sounds like you have some good experience.
No, not me. I'm the victim. I'm the victim. So.
Okay. So the stratagem that stood out to me as interesting was wait at leisure while the enemy labors, and have your troops well prepared for battle at the same time that the enemy is rushing to fight against you, ideally resulting in exhausting their troops, running into your fresh soldiers on terms of your own choosing. Well, terms of your own choosing is interesting, and it's just interesting to me because of what went on in Afghanistan, and sort of the saying that was Americans have the watch, but the Taliban's have the time. And yeah, kind of appears to me to be a bit applicable there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Pim, please.
Yeah, just follow up on Ben's point. I think of these ones on the screen, I see the most direct relationship of number 4 to Sun Tzu's philosophy. Sun Tzu emphasized that when you're the defender, you have a natural advantage because you're just sitting at home, and the attacker has to come a long way with all the supplies, logistics, and everything.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so during the enemy. So here is another 6. Okay, create something from nothing. Okay, I believe that's the big line. Okay, the open repair walkway, but sneaks through an easy path. Okay, so that's the famous one used by the Zhuge Liang in the Three Kingdoms time, and we can talk about this one a little bit later. And watch fires burning on the other bank of the river. Okay, so that means you are do nothing for your enemy, something like this. And hide knife within a smile. Okay, so sacrifice the plum tree to preserve the peach tree. Okay, and take opportunity to pilfer a goat. Okay, so one thing I can say is about the number 6. Okay, so-called take the opportunity to pilfer a goat. Okay, again, that's not me. Okay, but so basically that's talking about taking a small profit, right? So today in Chinese language, use this word so-called 顺手牵羊. Usually we means the shoplifter or means the pickpocket. Okay, this kind of thing. So talk about like a small crime, and then in a convenient time, just take a small profit because the risk is not that big. Okay, even the profit is small. So that's another way to look at it. So yeah, Madeline, please.
I am curious about number 5. I keep wondering about that. Is there some tradition in which the peach tree has more importance than the plum tree? Is it regarded as a better food crop, or does it have a spiritual or symbolic value?
Pin, do you know anybody know? I don't know peach and the plum, which more valuable. I don't know in the tradition, but probably they are the same value. But really, I don't know.
Same, that I was kind of wondering about this one too, what they really meant and what this one. Most of them are
understand on this one.
The meaning is pretty clear but this one is pretty obscure. So I did look it up last night. What's the background? What?
Well, can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Traditionally, peach in traditional Chinese is of a high value, much higher value, because it refers to Buddhism, and that's the xian tao. I'm sure you know xian tao. So peach is comparatively to the plum, in the religious, culturally, is of a higher value.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I think you are right. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I think you are right. The peach is much more valuable than plum, because the plum probably you see it in all over the place, and the peach is not. Okay, at least in my point of view, a peach is more expensive. So you sacrifice the less expensive thing. So for example, when you play chess, you may sacrifice your queen, okay, to save your king, okay, to survive. So that's the very important strategy. I think everybody know how to use this, right? So any other comment on this one?
I was just gonna add that. Yeah, I looked up Wikipedia. Said the original. It came from a poem that's in this book of the history of the Song Dynasty. It's talk about it's allegorical. So the plum and peach are allegorical and representing brothers, and the plum tree was infested by a parasite, and it's kind of hard to explain, but the original poem was talking about brothers who don't help each other. When one brother is in trouble, the other one is not helping that one. So that's where this idiom came from.
Yeah, I think that's the original coming from, but the original meaning is describing, right? Describing the situation, the brother, two brothers not helping each other, but here being used for the stratagems, okay, to sacrifice one brother, less important brother, to save the more important brother.
Yeah.
SK, please.
Yeah, I was wondering if it means, you should be not attached to either plum or peach. It doesn't matter. You should know what to sacrifice when, and depending on what your, approach is and what your game plan is. So I don't think plum or peach really, it's kind of like what Ping was saying, I guess the brothers analogy. So again, attachment is going to make you lose whatever you're trying to achieve. Maybe.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So, okay, let me explain like number 2. Okay, basically this one is a famous strategy during the Three Kingdoms period of time. The famous strategist Zhuge Liang. Okay, what he's doing is he want to attack the enemy. He has a shortcut to send the military over there, but he doesn't want to let enemy know he's going to send his troop through the shortcut. So he tried to build the walkway. Actually, it's a bridge. Okay, try to send a lot of people to build the bridge. So that the enemy thought he's going to build the bridge and had to send the big military through the bridge and to attack, so that the enemy, prepare, okay, for the fighting. But secretly, he built the bridge is totally no use, just a fate. Okay, so and he sent the small group from the shortcut and attack the enemy from the back, and he can win the war. So that's the historical background on this one, and that's why in the translation, they translate as Chen Chang. Okay, Chen Chang is the place they call Chen Chang. Okay, so that's why if you wondering why they call this name, yeah. Kevin, please.
Yeah, we'll talk about the first one. It's
the first one. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually from door. Very close to door. It's from nothing to something, from something to nothing. It's so like yin and yang. They kind of transform each other. It's basically, yeah, it's in reality. It's a practice out in reality. You see the politician, especially the use unintentionally. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's from Tao. From the Tao Te Ching basics. It's from that's something comes from nothing. Okay. And then that's we use this one for the strategy. Pinch, please.
Yeah, I agree. But in everyday language, number 1 is used a lot, normally in an accusatory term. When someone created some lie to defame you, you would say you're doing wu zhong chen yu. You're creating something out of nothing. Like you're doing some kind of disinformation or fake news to damage my reputation. Or that's how it's used in everyday language, most commonly.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why it's very important. Why 2 different cultures look at this one different way. For example, this one. So for create something from nothing, in the people inside the Chinese culture, we will look this one as, if I say Pin is create something from nothing, actually I'm accusing him. Okay, it's kind of like a bad word. Okay, when I describe somebody create something from nothing. Okay, so but of course the author read it as a stratagem. They will get a totally different impression on that. So basics, all this one, some are neutral, some are positive, some are negative. So, for the people outside that don't tell the difference. And then if you only look at the word, okay, that's all four words idioms. Okay, so you cannot tell what's the tone, okay, but only the person who see this one in the daily base have an idea, what's that mean.
Yeah, that's a great point. I would say, at least half of these are normally used in a negative sense, like more of something you should not do. not
Yeah,
something you should
something
do.
like number 6.
It's more of, yeah, afterward you just say, you did this to me, and you know, you did that to me. You're not a good person. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, look, guys, all this one is not a good one, guys. So, okay, so Madeline.
Yeah, I'm going to. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay, Madeline and Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds as if the closest English equivalent we would say he made it up out of whole cloth.
Yeah.
In other words, there was nothing there before. The entire thing has been invented and fabricated.
Yeah, and you can use this one to complain to somebody, or you can use this one as a business strategy if you want, right? So, Kevin, please.
Yeah, since you guys, let's use the literal meaning. Let's say, accuse someone. We also can use it. How about the creativity, the innovation? That's nothing over there in the market, right? Then we create a first time field. That Newton already used touch screen. Now it's iPad so popular. So so anything is like we consider these tools, techniques. How do you use it? What's the intention? You cause harm to others or benefit to yourself, or it's just for analytic or benefit for all. Thank you.
All right, Pim, please.
Yeah, number 4, that's another common accusation of someone who appears very friendly and diplomatic, but not trustworthy. It's like, be careful, this person might be hiding a knife behind a smile. And there's one of the rare ones of the 36 stratagems that I see commonality with Confucius. Confucius' famous saying, 巧言令色，鲜矣仁. Someone who comes to you with all smiles, very nice demeanors, very diplomatic all the time is rarely a person of ren, benevolence. That's so it's kind of a restatement of that.
Yeah, thank you. Kevin, please.
Yeah, here is lazy. Normally we value smiles, so it's a good virtue, right? When you smiling people immediately it's kind of close to you. If you can, so that's a very debate. You kind of see opposite side also kind of makes sense too. At the same time, yeah, we also meet that somebody smart you think that's a look down of me, or another way around, like here, maybe look about something, want to ask me help, or do something I cannot, I don't offer, or for other meaning. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so that's another for attacking. Okay, stomp the grass to scale the snake. Okay, borrow a corpse to resurrect the soul. Okay, lure the tiger off its mountain dial. To catch something, first set it free, tossing out a brick to get a jade gem. Defeat the bandits by capture their leaders. Okay, so Alex, please.
Yes, I really want to focus on the fact that this 36 stratagems is really the psychological warfare, even though it's being used in many other situations in life, but all these are psychological tactics. So this attacking stratagem, out of all this one, I actually not very clear on the first one, because usually in like when we use it in with my friends and stuff, we actually say that, oh, don't we actually say the opposite, like don't scare the snake, because it will actually have bad consequences. So in this attacking strategies, psychological strategy for attacking, how is scaring the snake be a good stratagem? That's my question. Thank you.
Well, I can answer your question. Actually, I just look at a different way. I will see the stomp the grass to scale snake is a good way to do it, because a lot of time when you look at your enemy is hiding, right? So you kind of like make a small attack, and they will kind of react. Then you know what's the situation they are. Okay, so kind of the way to understand, okay, what kind of strategy people are using. When you play chess, okay, you use your pawn to do it, and you kind of know, what kind of reaction, okay, your opponent is going to do. Okay, so that's the way, as a personally, that's the way I'm thinking, not the way.
I see. Yeah, because
you can take it both ways.
Yeah, because as in our common like Asian life, we actually say, oh, don't try to scare us. So my because you see, Jason, if I'm reading in Chinese, right? 打草惊蛇, that word 惊 is that, do you know what it's real mean? Because 惊 to me is like, frighten the snake, I'm, it's, I mean, it's, the snake actually has a personality, has already like some sort of attribute. This is a snake that could bite.
Yeah.
金蛇, you know what I mean? Like, where my confusion is? Okay.
Yeah, I understand, but and I think you can call mine is a bias or something, but okay, don't do this. That's, I agree. That's the same. But I take the positive view. I think it's one of the reasons related to my personal background, because I grew up in the Taiwan, the countryside. Taiwan have a lot of poisonous snake. Okay, when you go outside, the best way to avoid have a snake bites is to stomp the grass to scare the snake. So you take a stick before you walk, right? You stomp the grass, so the snake will go away. Okay, so they will make your pathway safe. That's the way we do it when we play in the grass field. Okay, to avoid a snake bite. So that's why one of the take as a positive view. So I'm not saying which way is right, but you can see the same.
Right. So basically, you're saying is that we make some noise to make the snake go away.
That's right.
Because they're scared of the noise.
That's right.
And therefore, in the psychological warfare, we can potentially make some situations, because we know that the situation, the other party is not going to like it and will most likely get away. Okay, thank you.
So that's a different point of view to look at. Yeah. Okay. Pin, please.
You guys explained it so well. I probably don't need to talk. I just want to say I agree with both of you. I had the same reaction as Alex when because normally we say it as something you don't do, but then I thought about it for a second. Well, same as what you said, Jason. It's to mix things up so you're not ambushed. To alarm get the hidden enemies to show themselves.
Ben, please.
Yeah, so sometimes I like to watch the news, and I watch it from different sides. Like I will watch it on CNN and Reuters, NBC, and Fox News, just to get an idea of like what everyone is saying from each political aisle. And one of the stratagems that kind of stands out to me in terms of like how the talk show hosts use the idea of spin in order to get their point across is borrow a corpse to resurrect the soul. It's like bring up an old idea, and then it can be a method, a technology, or an ideology that has been forgotten or discarded, and appropriate it for your own purposes. So one of the ideologies that I think definitely hasn't been totally forgotten, but the idea of like socialism. And so I was watching Sean Hannity, and he's talking about I think there was $3 trillion that was approved for the budget recently, and he's bringing up socialism. So he's resurrecting that fear of basically, it could be corruption, enslavement, lack of freedom, that type thing, and high taxes and all of that. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Kevin, please.
I'm going to follow the first one. First is storm the grass to scare snake. I agree. That's one way I understand. Second way, we also have the insert to do. Basically, you guys like in Taiwan lost snake. I mean, live north of China. We lack of snake. We use a snake and make soup when I was child. So we going to storm grass to scare snake come up. We easily grab it. When you grab the tail of snake, you can use to turn around, because their bone is so loose, they eventually die. So no attack to you. That's the first one. Third one, lure the tiger off the mountain lure. Let's imagine the big topics about the US and the Soviet Union. That time competition. Let's see, we're going to spend all the money to military. Eventually, you spend all the money for the Soviet Union, their economy collapse. That's one. Let's see. Basically, switch your focus. That you should focus on the economic, the people living first. However, you do something else. That's one reason I kind of think about. Maybe not accurate, but the fifth one, tossing out a brick, get a jade gem. This is in business economy so popular. Give you bonus. You open a bank account, they give you $20, $100 or you switch your bank to mine, I give you something. Actually, you need your long term. Give you a break, but actually for your whole, wealthy, put in my bank. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay. I think I'd like to talk about number 4 a little bit. Okay. To catch something, first set it free. The author and the next comment say, if you love somebody, set them free. I think that's not right. Okay. So basics is said is the way to use it. Okay. Put this way is you want to get somebody. Okay. You just set them free, kind of set them free to let the enemy relax. Okay, that's a psychological warfare. So basically, you set them free, but not really set them free. You just pretend set them free, so you will lose. Okay, so that's the chance to get. Or you have an enemy in the corner. They are going to fight very hard. Okay, because they have no way to. There's a death or life situation, so they are going to fight very hard. So you let them go. Okay, let the enemy go, give them a way to go. So when they go, that's the time to catch. Because if you to put the enemy in the corner, that would be very difficult to catch. Okay, so that's the way to read this one. Yeah, Alex, please.
Yeah, I actually also find this one really interesting because it requires, a lot of skill to set it free and then get it back again. I like to watch crime dramas. So a lot of times, the investigators would not catch, they know the guy who might have done it. So they don't want to catch him first because they want to see if he does something else. If there's something else could be revealed and more information could be revealed because they're free to do all these things. So then they gather more information and, to prosecute the criminal. And then, then they catch them in the end when they have enough evidence. So, I mean, it's a very time consuming and I feel like, it takes a lot of patience and you might lose your enemy too. So this strategy is you could lose in the end. It's not like a perfect, situation, but it works very well if you have the patience. And I think it's also to reveal more information about your enemy. So you watch them. You don't catch them on the first onset. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about number 5. I have a different understanding on this one. Toss a brick to get a jade. Okay, because brick is cheap and the jade is expensive. So in the company, if you want to hire a good talent, but sometimes it's difficult to hire. So you hire the mediocre person with a good salary, and they spread out the message. People will say, this guy got this and I'm much better than him and I should be able to get this. So that's the way to, to get the talent. So, sometimes you do so for example, like, for example, like this meetup, when I want to start, I think, well, how can I attract the talent people to join us? So I think let me go first. I'm the brick. So I go out and then turn out a lot of people coming, so a lot of people are much better than me, but they will come. So that's the way to, have something out and then you have much better coming in the future. So that's the way I read these idioms. Pins, please.
Yeah, I just want to echo what you said. I had exactly the same thought. That this one is often used as an expression of modesty and more of a benevolent act. When someone gets appointed to some position, that person might say, "Oh, I'm just the brick, and I hope a real jade will take over my position one day." If I don't do a good job, maybe that'll just motivate someone else better to take over, and it will be better. At the end, it will be better for all of us. Something like that. So it's one that has, I think, one of the rare ones of the 36 that's that can be used that way, as an expression of modesty.
Yeah, I think that's this one is the one to use as a moral teaching or something like a better way. So sometimes the situation we will see in the group of people, and when the speaker asks the audience, anybody have any comment? Everybody is quiet. So somebody will be doing the toss out the brick to get the jade, right? So you will stand up to speak something, but probably something nonsense. But you start to speak, then the next one, because you started, So as a host, you will appreciate this kind of person because he started something nonsense, but turn out, a lot of valuable comment coming up. So I think that's another way to look at it. Yeah, Alex.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this attacking stratagem, it's not. It's you could be used both ways. You can lure out the best ones and then kill them. Just like if there are two companies trying to get, I heard the story in Taiwan. So Chinese companies like to lure a lot of Taiwanese talents to China, and then just make them sit there and do nothing. So it's like, even though they give them really good packages, but really they're just trying to, it's a business strategy to kind of infiltrate the other company and then take away their talent. So yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly right. We can look at it in both ways, right? So we can have the brick out, then turn out the enemy's jade to come out following. Then you just kill the jade. So that's another way to look at it. So really, you want to act moral or immoral? That's your choice. Okay, let's move on. This one, another in the chaos situation. Okay, any comment on this one? Remove the firewood under the pot. Okay, I hope everybody understands this, right? So you cook the soup is basically the story is if you have a pot of soup you are cooking, right? If the soup is boiling, right? So if you make it higher to avoid your boiling, it's the better way is to take out the firewood, then make the fire smaller instead of lift high on the pot. I think that's the idea talking about. Okay. So anybody have a comment on this one? I think number 5 probably worth talking. Okay, basics. That's very famous story. Okay, in the during the warring state. Okay, if you try to picture on the west, they have the Qin dynasty. Eventually conquer the entire China and reunite the whole China as one nation. That's on the west side. That's the Qin dynasty. On the east side, the most east side, okay, or during the warring state, they have a 7 state they are fighting. So on the west side, that's the Qin dynasty is strong. The second strong is Qi dynasty on the east side. So that's the furthest 2 sides. So the way Qin is doing is the Qin is making friend with your furthest, your distant neighbor. Okay, so then he has the time, okay, and energy to conquer all his adjacent neighbor. Okay, so that's the way it has been used since the warring state about 2,300 years ago. Okay, that's a very famous strategy. So that's a and probably also used in today's, right? Like during the I think the Peter's Great. Okay, I think the Russian history I read sometime, they always make friends with friends, and so you can be enemy with German, and they make enemy with German. So you always make friends with the distant neighbor, and then you have the space to fight with your adjacent neighbor. So it's just opposite than what Bible teaches us, love your neighbor. Basically, you love your neighbor's neighbor, so you can fight with your neighbor. So, Madam, please.
I'm very interested in number 3. Suck off the cicada's golden shell. I know there's exquisite prehistoric Chinese artwork, carvings of cicadas, and I think it must have some ancient cultural resonance that those of us here in the West aren't getting. And I'm wondering if anyone from Asia can comment on that.
Anybody have a story on this? I don't have a story on this because I hear so many times. I assume I understand. I never checked what's the history background. Pin, do you know?
Oh, sorry, I walked away for a minute. What's the question?
The number 3, 金蝉脱壳. Is there any historical background on this one?
Yeah, I was wondering because it has there's such beautiful old carvings, prehistoric ones in China, of the insects, and I was just wondering if it has some cultural resonance or significance that we don't really have for those insects here.
You know, one thing I can say is I grew up in Taiwan, and in the summer have a lot of cicadas, and the cicada usually, you know, when they grow, they will shell out. Okay, the shell just like a crab, they shell out, and it's amazing when the shell is kept intact. Okay, it's beautiful. Okay, it's the shell. So I got a habit to collect the shell, the cicada's shell. Okay. So that's another thing. But I don't know the golden shell.
There is a story, I think, from an ancient poem. I can't remember the poem exactly now, but also, yeah, there is a special love of Chinese for cicadas. The cicadas appear in a lot of poems, ancient poems, and the sound that they make is supposed to evoke emotions of sadness, departure. They also signal the coming of fall. Fall is the season of death in Chinese culture.
Yeah, another way to look at, okay, I don't know the beautiful side of the story, but the application usually is just opposite than the one something like replace the sacrifice the plum tree for the peach tree. Okay, that's just opposite. You just give up to the one you don't want, right? When you play chess, okay, some like horse or something you want to survive, right? You just give up, okay, something you don't, or like you see the lizard, right? When the lizard want to escape, sometimes the lizard will give up its tail. So that's the way to look at, you know, in this situation. Yeah.
And similarly to Jason, you know, having grown up in Taiwan, cicadas very, very prevalent. The shell that they shed is kind of amazing to see. And also they're so loud during the summer. It's like the sound of summer. And then all of a sudden that sound stops when autumn sets in. And it does make you feel something. It's kind of a loss, all of a sudden that you don't hear that sound anymore, and summer is over. Yeah, so I can see why these ancient poets wrote so much about cicadas.
Ty, please.
Oh, so I just had a quick, I don't know, story about cicadas. As a refugee, I didn't have very many toys growing up. And so like one of the things I did in the summer was catch cicadas, and actually like you could tie a string on them and they would basically be your personal kite. And, after they got tired of flying nowhere, they would land on you. And if you flipped them backwards, you had a little instrument in your hand. But otherwise, I agree, when they molt, they're most vulnerable. All right, that's all I had to say.
So where you get a cicada in America?
Oklahoma. I mean, they're similar to cicadas. I assume they were cicadas, but they're everywhere. They make the same noise. I think they're probably just in a different, genus, but they're basically the same insect. They make noise, and they make noise in groups. I think here in the States, it's one of those weird things where they all come up from underground after 7 years or something like that, 9 years or something like that. So anyways, if it probably wasn't necessarily a cicada, but they were certainly in the same genus.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I had to look that up, Ty. Yeah, the cicada in Asia don't have the 7-year cycle thing, so they're there every year. But yeah, you're right. It's in the American South and Midwest. There are a lot of places where cicadas.
So the Asian
They're also in New Jersey. Don't.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, let's not forget New Jersey. Yeah.
So Pin, the Taiwan cicada is every year, not 17 years, something like. No, I think they all the same, right?
No. The however many years, I think those are the Asian cicadas don't have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alex, please.
Yeah, I'm also referring to the third one, 金蝉脱壳, because is this in this chaos stratagem? Does it mean that it's trying to escape, or is it trying to pretend to be something else?
It's like a Houdini act, basically.
So it's
someone have you captured, you have you handcuffed, and you somehow slip your hands out of the handcuffs and run away.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay, so another thing we can talk about is disturb the water and catch the fish. Okay, that's also a very famous use. Okay, basically talking about when the water is blurred, and that's the way you can catch the fish. But the idea is the fish cannot see you clearly, so you can catch the fish. And the real application is in the chaos situation. That's the good time to be lazy or to be, doing something else. Take a negative way. It's this way. So, okay, so we have a lot to can talk about this, but we just, let me see. Okay, let's move quickly. So I have a little bit time to talk about the Sun Tzu. Okay, so this one is approximate strategy. Okay, anything want to talk about this one? Anybody want to? Let's just talk like one or two, then that'll be fine. So number 4 is a very bad strategy, right? You lose somebody to the roof and take out the leather. Okay, I believe the author look at this one probably feel like, wow, that's the Chinese doing. So yeah, but yeah. No comment on this one?
Well,
Kevin.
I thought number 2 is a mistranslation. The locust, Huayas, I think, is an elm tree. Yeah, I don't know where this
I don't know.
locus. Yeah. Anyway, that's all. Yeah. Minor point. That's yeah.
Yeah, that's a kind of small strategy. Basics is not really people use in the for example, like let's use the example. Pin owe me a lot of money, and then I want him to return money to me, but I feel not good to talk about. So when he come to my home, I just tell my son, you should be honest, So you borrow money from your neighbor, you should return, But when Pin is there, he hear this and he know I'm talking about him. So that's kind of like not direct in attack somebody, and then you use another target.
Yeah. Normally, yeah, it's using language not as a strategy, more of a, yeah, like you said, let's say I'm here sitting here say, oh, so-and-so who just spoke, I won't name, I thought said something really stupid and this and that. And then you might say, oh, stop pointing out the mulberry tree and cursing out the Chinese elm tree. You really talk about me, aren't you? Why don't you just be upfront about it? It's
Kevin, please.
Yeah, you mentioned for every time you guys mention it, kind of you find one opposite example. You see that it's bad for, right? However, we use it a lot. For example, there's nuclear. Let's say we got a nuclear weapon in the country. Oh, stop, guys! Hey, nobody else. Only we have. That's dangerous. That's one example. Second, let's say patent. Let's say if you find something, let's say 5G or 6G or other patent, no one else. No, I would 20 years after you got it. You can buy something from me. You cannot use it or invent. So it's a similar scenario. You move a ladder. I build a ladder. Nobody can use this ladder.
Mandarin, please.
Yeah, number 6. It's a staple of folk tales from around the world. The master who hires a servant who becomes ill, and eventually the master is just working for the servant all the time. Or it's also interesting because the more we know about parasitology in nature, the more we can see that this happens too with those famous examples like, the fungus that invades an ant and then controls its behavior, makes it behave oddly in such a way that doesn't benefit the ant, but does benefit the fungus eventually. So there's actually a lot of number 6 going on in nature with parasitism.
Yeah, I think the number 6 is more a description than a teaching. I think that's more a description. So sometimes we will use as describe some bad guest, right? When I invite somebody come to my home, and all of a sudden he looks like the host. He just opened the refrigerator, take out everything, start to cook, and sometimes start to clean up, ask somebody to do something. So all of a sudden you find out, am I the host or he's the host? So sometimes we use as a description, not a prescription. Yeah. Dave, please.
Yeah, number 5, decorate the tree with false blossoms reminds me of a deceptive business practice of selling a gold mine and salting it with some false gold here and there in prominent places that the sucker, when you take him to tour, was, oh, look at that gold. Oh, yeah, I bet there's a lot of gold in here. And to get a high price for something worthless. Thanks. It's an interesting topic today. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Let's move to the last one, okay? Well, Pin, you want to talk about the last one? I know you disagree on the translation. If all else fails, retreat, right?
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely a mistranslation. What literally says is walking is the supreme strategy. And that's how in our everyday language, we say that a lot, right? Of the 36 stratagems, walking away is the best one. We say it all the time. And also in historical books, it's written that most often cited in that context too. I've never seen if all else fails, then do that. The translation implies that you should try all the other ones first before you try this one, which is just the opposite. So that's why I wanted to point this out. This is the only one where I find the translation really objectionable.
Actually, it's a little bit satire, you know. And if you read that, it's considered as a book, have a 36 chapter, right? You read from the first chapter to the 35. That's a good strategy. And the last one tell you,
yeah.
Actually, if you can go, you don't have to learn the past 35. You know?
Exactly. That's how, you're exactly right. That's normally how we use it. Normally, I would use it humorously when you want to run away from something where you are the party and you really want to leave because it's boring. So you would say something, and then also, yeah, the implication is like, well, I don't need to know the other 35 because you just need to know this one. So it's really the opposite of the translation. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, technically, if you write a textbook, this one you should put in the chapter 1, right?
Yeah.
If you can walk, then you walk away. You don't have to read the other 35. Okay. So they put it in the last. So it's like a satire style, but and then it's not that strict. Like I try 35 strategy, I still cannot survive. Let me go. Okay. So not this way. So thank you. That's set the tone correct. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like that country song, you gotta know when to fold. And if you know that, maybe you don't need to know anything else.
So yeah, that's the and I think everybody can get the flavor, That's why how different when the outsider read a culture by just a translation, and the insider learn this from the daily life, and how different, from two sides to the thing. Yeah. Madeline and Alex, please.
I'd be interested in hearing people's thoughts on number 3. Let the enemy's own spy sow discord in the enemy camp. It seems a very sophisticated strategy compared to the other ones. And it seems as if, so basically it's disinformation. Like we know that this person has come, so let's say the Jason Corporation has co-opt someone at the PIN Corporation and to spy on them for him. But in the meantime, the Jason Corporation is giving the spy misinformation about what's happening at Jason Incorporated. And so that information is traveling back to the PIN Corporation. That's what this is about, right? I don't know how anyone would use that in poker, but I can certainly see using it in diplomacy and in corporate affairs.
I would say this one could be just like, I think it's in all the culture use it, right? It's a double intelligence or double agent. That's the situation we are talking about. So you can be very complicated, but probably every culture have this kind of strategy, being practiced for 1,000 years.
Let's say, my corporation, I find out that Jason is really a spy working for another corporation. So I talk to Jason, I lure him, say, maybe you really want to spy for me, but don't reveal that.
Is that Alex, please?
Yes. I actually have a question on number. Okay, I actually have a few comments on this one, but I want to respond to number 3, Madeline's, because I learned a little bit about like the communists during the communist regime, how they their spy networks. So there are 2 kinds of spies, and they're still using it today. As of today, all the countries are using the similar strategy. First of all, you can send someone into the other person's camp and have that person as a spy and get information from there and back to the main camp. Or and the second way is that you go to the other camp and you just flip. It's called the flip. You flip someone and have that inside person become the spy for you. So there are two kinds of spy. Either you send it in or you flip someone. And then so that's a good way. But I just the other thing is I'm not really sure how, because this chapter is called Desperate Stratagems. So I don't know why like a spy strategy would be a desperate attempt. But anyway, I'm just gonna leave it at this. I actually want to respond to number 6. That's the first thing I want to say. I want to further interpret it from Pin and from Jason, because I actually use this one a lot in my personal life. I have thought about this a lot. Okay, so I think why the person, whoever who made up this, put this in the last, is actually serving as the most important thing. Usually when you read the story, the most important thing happened the last part, right? And why he put this as the last part is really a warning, and to tell people that, this is my interpretation, that before you enter into any situation, either a family function or a reunion or whatever it is, whatever situation it is, or a negotiation with another company, whatever it is, any situation, you have to think about, the first thing is your exit strategy. And it's been talked a lot about exit strategy a lot because of what happened in Afghanistan, because the exit strategy is just terrible. So actually what this number 6 really is saying is you can use any of the 35 stratagems, but what you should do first is actually figure out your exit strategy before you deploy any of the other 35, because this is about self-preservation. If you know how to get out of the whatever situation is, then you can have another opportunity to attack your opponent again. So, and to retreat, to have a good exit strategy is actually very difficult, because you have to anticipate many different kinds of situations. What if this happens, what if that happens, So I think that's what I think about a lot. Like if I have to go into some situations, I first think about, or even when I go to like a movie theater, I would find like, okay, where's the exit? It's just my personality, because I think then I feel confident, because I guess because I've been through September 11, and I think a lot of people saw that on TV, but I was at ground zero. So from that personal experience, I feel like, when I go into a situation, I like to know, where do I exit? How do I exit? Then I would feel more confident and know, like, okay, if I play out my strategy, whatever happens, okay, this is the way to go, so I can preserve myself. I think that's the essence of number 6.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I think if you are being in the fundraising for the startup company, and the investor first thing will ask you is, what's your exit strategy, right? So that's this one.
That's right.
And Alex, thank you for pointing out the desperate is a mistranslation. In Chinese is losing war strategy, meaning that when you're at a disadvantage, when you know you're at a disadvantage, what are the strategies to deploy? So it should be stratagems of disadvantaged position. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that's the right, the better translation. Who is next? Let's go from Dave, Kevin, and iPhone. Okay, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, guys. As far as number 3, when the Allies were anticipating invading France in World War II on D-Day, they went to elaborate plans to try to deceive the Germans where they were going to invade. General Patton was a very famous general, but he lost favor. He had been relieved of his command. So he's put in command of a non-existent army, but he sent messages back and forth about this invasion in the wrong place. And then the final stroke is they got a body and put a uniform on the body and put a false sets of plans in the pocket and deliberately had the body wash ashore for the Germans to discover. Because they knew it was going to be a very difficult invasion. So they did several things to deceive the Germans. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Kevin, please.
Yes, thank you. I would say also adore the Alex, got a life experience on 911. Yeah. And that's for the last, even from original article, you saying they actually use the say offer 36 strategies, fleeing is best. It's for Chinese idiom. It's from that original article. I would say maybe you need to read this. And first here, if you use strategy 36, which means you have option. Sometimes you don't have option. Oh, imagine that's your territory, that's your house, that's your land. You have to leave. That's tough. So that's all I want to say over there.
All right, thank you. iPhone, that's method. iPhone 12.
Yes. Hello, this is Elena.
Yeah, Alina.
I have a question about the so for instance, what Pin mentioned earlier in the last hour is once you start achieving 10 on the scale, 0 to 10, and you are achieving 10 consistently, that's considered to be rare in Chinese culture. Could you please talk about that? Then what happens? Do you need to negotiate with the game? What do you need to do? Because of just how to, so the whole concept to keep the balance, though it's just how is it being translated into what Pin said? Thank you.
Pin, you want to respond?
I would say philosophically, number one, avoid taking everything. But somehow by accident you forgot and you took everything, which is human nature, then I gotta be extra cautious and maybe gracefully start giving away some of this stuff. So this is in I Ching, the first chapter. The analogy is the dragon, going from low level to high level. And the very last verse is, the dragon that flies the highest has regrets. And this is repeatedly in Taoism, in Lao Tzu's book, over and over. You don't want to fill something full. Once it's full, it has no more room to take in anything. It's also going to spill. But it really is not just in Taoism. You can find it in Confucianism. Arrogance, conceitedness is bad. Leads to failure. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. If it's not clear, please ask me.
Okay. I think we are. Oh, it's 3 o'clock. Okay, so I think we've done the 36 stratagems. Okay, and then I'm going to stop to conclude for today. And then anyway, thank you very much. And then I make today a little bit different. And then so next week